Hey, how's it going? Look, today I'm going to tell you a story that seems straight out of a horror movie, but according to reports, it actually happened. It's a story about compassion, about the limits of humanity, and about how sometimes kindness can have consequences we never imagined. Let me explain it in a simple way. This is the story of a man who found an abandoned child in the forest. But it wasn't an ordinary child. It was something between human and animal. A DOGMAN child. And moved by compassion, he decided to adopt this creature and raise it as if it were his own son. For 12 years, he dedicated his life to trying to humanize this being. But what happened after those 12 years will give you chills. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. This story raises deep questions about nature versus nurture, about animal instincts versus learned behavior, and about how far our capacity goes to change the essence of a being. And the outcome of this story is something no one could have predicted. If you like disturbing, mysterious stories that mess with us on a deep level, stay with me until the end of this video because I'm going to tell you every detail of this unbelievable story. And look, before we continue, subscribe to the channel and leave that like because I'm always bringing content that makes you think, that makes you question reality, and that shows the dark side of human decisions. Let's go. Our story begins in 2008 in a remote area of the Appalachian Mountains. A man named Thomas Webb, a wildlife biologist who lived alone in a cabin deep in the forest, was doing his routine patrol when he heard strange sounds coming from a cave near his property. Let me explain it in a simple way. What Thomas found that day would change his life forever. Inside that cave, huddled in the corner, was a child. But it wasn't a normal child. It had human features, yes, but also canine characteristics. Elongated ears, sharp teeth, claws instead of nails, and a thin layer of fur covering parts of its body. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. Any normal person would have run away. Any sane person would have called the authorities. But Thomas was different. He was a scientist, yes, but above all, he was a compassionate man. And when he looked into the eyes of that creature, he didn't see a monster. He saw a scared, abandoned child. Pay attention to this, because it makes a huge difference. The child appeared to be around 3 or 4 years old in human terms. It was malnourished, dehydrated, and clearly had been abandoned there for days, maybe weeks. It growled when Thomas approached, showed its teeth, behaved like a cornered wild animal. But Thomas didn't give up. And look, there's another important detail. Thomas spent 3 full days just sitting near the cave, not trying to approach, just being present. He left food, water, and slowly, very slowly, the creature began to trust him. On the 4th day, when Thomas extended his hand, the child didn't bite. It sniffed. And then, for the first time, it allowed human touch. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. What Thomas did next was controversial, probably illegal, and definitely dangerous. Instead of reporting the discovery to the authorities, instead of taking the creature to scientists or researchers, he made a decision that would define the next 12 years of his life. He decided to take the child home. He decided to adopt it. Pay attention to this because it makes a huge difference. Thomas named the creature Jacob. In his mind, he was going to prove that nurture could overcome nature. He was going to prove that even a being born as something between human and animal could learn to be human. He was going to civilize the uncivilizable. And for the first few months, it seemed like an impossible mission. Jacob couldn't speak, couldn't walk upright for long periods, preferred to eat raw meat, and howled at the moon every night. But Thomas was patient. He was determined. And slowly, very slowly, changes began to appear. So if you're wondering how a man could make such a radical decision, understand. Thomas saw potential where others would see only danger. He saw humanity where others would see only a beast. And that compassion, that determination to help, would lead to consequences that no one could have predicted. The first 3 years were brutal. Thomas documented everything in journals that were later found, and according to his writings, it was the hardest period of his entire life. Let me explain it in a simple way. Teaching Jacob to be human was like trying to reprogram something that had been wired completely differently. Every human behavior that we take for granted had to be taught from scratch. walking upright without reverting to all fours, using utensils instead of eating with hands and mouth directly from the plate, wearing clothes without tearing them off immediately, sleeping in a bed instead of curling up in corners. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. Jacob's progress was slow but real. By age 5, in human development terms, he could say simple words. By age 6, he could form basic sentences. By age 7, he could read simple books. Thomas was methodical, patient, treating Jacob's education like a scientific experiment combined with genuine parental love. Pay attention to this because it makes a huge difference. But there were always signs. Signs that no matter how much Jacob learned human behavior, something primal remained underneath. When animals passed by the cabin, Jacob's eyes would track them with predatory focus. When he got angry or frustrated, a low growl would escape his throat before he caught himself. When he played, it was always too rough, too aggressive, more like hunting practice than childhood games. And look, Thomas documented something fascinating in his journals. Jacob seemed to understand that he was different. Around age 8, he started asking questions. Why don't I look like you? Why do I have these? Pointing to his claws. Why do people in your books look different from me? And Thomas, in his compassion, always told him the same thing. You're special. You're unique. And that makes you wonderful. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. Thomas homeschooled Jacob, never taking him to town, never allowing other humans to see him. He told himself it was to protect Jacob from people who wouldn't understand. But maybe deep down, he knew that Jacob could never truly integrate into human society. Pay attention to this because it makes a huge difference. By age 10, Jacob had learned an impressive amount. He could read at a high school level. He could do complex math. He understood history, science, literature. His mind was sharp, capable, intelligent. But his body, his instincts, those remained stubbornly non-human. And there's another crucial detail. Thomas began to notice behavioral changes as Jacob entered what would be puberty. The growling became more frequent. Jacob started disappearing into the forest for hours at a time. He became more aggressive, more territorial. Thomas attributed it to normal teenage hormones, but it was something darker, something more primal awakening. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. By year 11, Thomas started keeping a gun nearby at all times. He didn't write explicitly why in his journals, but the implication was clear. He was starting to feel afraid, not of Jacob, the boy he had raised, but of something else emerging beneath the surface. So if you're wondering whether love and education were enough to overcome Jacob's true nature, the answer was about to reveal itself in the most horrifying way possible. Because year 12 was coming, and with it, everything would change. And hey, are you following the story? Are you already imagining how this is going to end? Leave a comment below. Do you think nature or nurture wins in the end? Drop nature wins or nurture wins, and let me know what you think happens next. And look, if you're enjoying this content, share it with that friend who also loves disturbing, mysterious stories that make you think. This story raises deep questions about what makes us human and whether some things can really be changed. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now because I'm always bringing stories like this, mysterious content, real cases that seem unbelievable, and everything that makes you question reality. Let's continue because what happens next is the darkest part of this story. It was a cold November night in 2020. Jacob was now 12 years into his life with Thomas. He looked like a teenager, around 15 or 16 in human development. And according to Thomas's final journal entries, something had been very wrong for weeks. Let me explain it in a simple way. Jacob had become increasingly distant. He barely spoke anymore. He spent most of his time in a forest, sometimes not coming back until dawn. When he was in the cabin, he was restless, pacing, watching Thomas with eyes that Thomas described as lacking recognition. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. Thomas wrote in his last journal entry, dated November 18, 2020, I don't recognize him anymore. When I look into Jacob's eyes, I see something looking back that isn't the boy I raised. It's something else. Something that was always there, just waiting. I've made a terrible mistake. I thought I could change nature. I was wrong. Pay attention to this because it makes a huge difference. That night, Thomas was woken up by sounds in the cabin. He grabbed his gun and went to investigate. According to the police report that came months later, what happened next could only be pieced together by evidence because Thomas didn't survive to tell the story. And look, here's what the investigators found. Signs of a struggle throughout the cabin. Furniture overturned. Claw marks on the walls. Blood. A lot of blood. And Thomas's body, found 3 days later by a passing hiker who noticed the cabin door wide open. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. The official report stated that Thomas Webb died from multiple trauma wounds consistent with an animal attack. But there was something that didn't add up. The attack was too methodical, too calculated, too personal. This wasn't a wild animal that had broken in. This was something that knew the cabin intimately. Pay attention to this because it makes a huge difference. Jacob was never found. Some people say he ran back into the forest, reverting completely to his animal nature. Others say he's still out there, somewhere in the Appalachian Mountains, living as the creature he always was underneath. And there's another disturbing detail. In the months following Thomas's death, there were reports from nearby towns of livestock being killed in ways that didn't match any known predator. Clean kills, but with an intelligence behind them. As if something that understood human patterns was hunting near civilization, but staying just out of reach. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. Some researchers who later studied Thomas's journals believe they know what happened. They believe that as Jacob went through puberty, his animal instincts became impossible to suppress. They believe that all the human behavior he had learned was just a thin veneer over something fundamentally non-human. And when that veneer cracked, when his true nature demanded dominance, Thomas became what he always was in nature's eyes, prey. Pay attention to this because it makes a huge difference. There's a theory that Jacob didn't attack out of pure animal instinct. Some behavioral experts who analyze the scene believe there was emotion behind it. Resentment maybe. Rage at being forced to be something he wasn't. Anger at being kept from his true nature for 12 years. It wasn't just an animal attack. It was a rebellion. So the question that haunts everyone who knows this story is, was Jacob a victim who finally freed himself? Or was he always a predator, just biding his time? The answer, like Jacob himself, remains lost somewhere in those dark forests. After Thomas's death, a small group of researchers gained access to his journals and began studying the case. What they found raised more questions than answers. Let me explain it in a simple way. Thomas had documented everything. Photos, measurements, behavioral observations, teaching methods. He had created the most comprehensive study of a cryptid creature ever recorded. But he had done it in secret, in isolation, and now he was dead because of it. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. The researchers faced an ethical dilemma. Do they publish this information? Do they organize search parties to find Jacob? Do they warn the communities near the Appalachian Mountains that something dangerous might be out there? In the end, they decided to keep it quiet. The official story became that Thomas died in a bear attack, and his research journals were sealed. Pay attention to this, because it makes a huge difference. But information always finds a way to leak. People who lived near where Thomas's cabin was located started sharing stories. Strange howls that sound almost human. Glimpses of something moving through the trees that walks upright but isn't quite human. Livestock killed with precision that no normal predator possesses. And look, there's something even more disturbing. Some researchers believe Jacob wasn't unique. They believe there might be others like him, hidden in remote forests around the world. Creatures that exist in the space between human and animal, products of unknown origins, living just beyond the reach of civilization. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. Thomas's story became a cautionary tale in certain scientific circles. A reminder that compassion, while admirable, can't always overcome biology. That some experiments, no matter how well-intentioned, should never be attempted. That nature has rules we can't simply wish away with love and education. Pay attention to this because it makes a huge difference. The psychological impact on researchers who studied the case was significant. Many reported nightmares. Some questioned their own work with wildlife rehabilitation. Because Thomas's case proved something terrifying, that intelligence and learned behavior don't eliminate instinct. They just mask it. And when that mask comes off, what's underneath can be deadly. And there's one final detail that sends chills down everyone's spine. In Thomas's last journal entry, the one written hours before his death, he wrote something that suggests he knew what was coming. He wrote, "If you're reading this, it means I was right to be afraid. Jacob is standing outside my window right now, and he's not my son anymore. He's something else. Something I should have left in that cave 12 years ago. To whoever finds this, don't look for him. Don't try to help him. Some things are meant to stay wild. I learned that too late. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. That journal was found open on Thomas's desk, those words being the last thing he ever wrote. And somewhere out there, in the vast wilderness of the Appalachian Mountains, Jacob remains. Neither fully human nor fully animal. A living question mark about the nature of humanity itself. So the story doesn't have a clean ending because it's not over. Jacob is still out there. And every hiker, every camper, every person who ventures into those deep forests should know, you're not alone out there. So, what do you think of this story? Does it terrify you? Does it make you question what makes us human? Does it make you wonder if compassion has limits? Because that's what this story is really about. It's about a man who saw something abandoned and chose kindness. And it cost him everything. As your friend, I need to be honest with you. There are no heroes or villains in this story. Thomas wasn't wrong to show compassion. Jacob wasn't evil for following his nature. It's a tragedy where everyone loses because sometimes the universe doesn't care about our good intentions. The real question is, if you found something like Jacob abandoned and alone, could you walk away? Or would you, like Thomas, believe that love could conquer nature? It's easy to judge from safety, but in that moment, faced with those eyes looking at you with fear and hope, what would you really do? If this story made you think, if it gave you chills, leave that like below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And share this with someone who also loves stories that blur the line between reality and nightmare. And tell me in the comments, do you think Jacob was a victim or a predator? I want to know your opinion. And look, if you want more stories like this, mysterious cases, disturbing tales that make you question everything, keep an eye on this channel because there's a lot of good content coming. Some truths are stranger and darker than any fiction. A hug and see you in the next video.